By the way, one quick announcement. We do have one public hearing item tonight that concerns a piece of property. If any of the commissioners have visited that site, made a site visit, or had any extra hearing communications with either the developer or the applicants with respect to that site, you should disclose that on the record as part of your council discussions.
Copy.
Okay, Chair.
All right, good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the City of Glendora Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, October 6th, 2020. I'm going to call to order the meeting at 7:00 p.m. For the audience tonight, I am the chair and serve as the presiding officer for tonight's meeting. Before we move forward, I would like to announce that in response to executive order issued by Governor Newsom, the city is conducting a teleconference public meeting utilizing Zoom video communications. This allows the city to continue to conduct essential business and comply with the Public Health Administration recommendation to protect the public and the city employees, practice social distancing, and limit exposure by not allowing in-person public meetings. To ensure that the public will be able to participate in public comment, you can submit as live comments during Zoom meetings and via email at publiccomment@cityofglendora.org. Madam Deputy City Clerk, will you please conduct a roll call?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, I will conduct an oral roll call and request that each commissioner respond with present when their name is called. Commissioner Koss,
Present.
Commissioner Matthews,
Present.
Commissioner Norwood,
Oh, he's here. He just,
I think Commissioner Norwood is there.
I think he's muted.
Present.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes. Vice Chair Davis
Present.
and Chair Kent.
Here.
And everyone is present, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Vice Chair Davis, if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which one nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, I see we have no special items. Public comment. I am now going to open public comment period. At this time, I would like to invite members of the public to address the commission. You may give public comment during the public comments. During public comment, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on both on and off agenda items. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Please address your comments to me, the presiding officer. Public comments are limited to 30 minutes in total. If you would like to request to speak, select the raise hand icon on the Zoom before the close of the public comment period. You will then be called on when your turn is up to speak. Madam Deputy City Clerk, do we have any requests for received to speak right now?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, we have received no request to speak via email or through the Zoom meeting.
Okay. Seeing that, I guess we will close the public comment and we will move on. Are there any requests by any of the commissioners to reorder or make any additions to the agenda?
No.
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 Hearing none, then we'll move on to public hearings. Our first, we have one item under public hearings tonight. The first item is a consideration of a resolution to approve the development plan review to allow the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence and related grading over 150 cubic yards on certain property at 936 Rainbow Drive, APN E636014037. Applicant is Edward Osh, project number PLN 19-0019. We'll have planning technician Weaver to present to the staff, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. This item is a request for the approval of a development plan review to allow the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence and related grading over 150 cubic yards. The project number is PLN 19-0019. This item was continued from last month's Planning Commission meeting to a date certain, which is tonight's meeting, October 6th. Next, please. Just to summarize what was the project from last meeting, the applicant is requesting the approval of a development plan review for project entitlement plans related to the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence and grading over 150 cubic yards. The proposed residence includes 5 bedrooms, a theater, a gym, 7 bathrooms, a 3-car garage, assorted living areas, and a pool with detached cabana. Due to the topography of the site, the applicant is requesting a deficient front yard setback of 14 feet 9 inches as measured from the front of the residence to the road. Reductions in setbacks are permitted per the Glendora Municipal Code, as it would prevent further grading into steep hillside areas. Next, please. Just as kind of like a recap, on the September 1st meeting, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the subject agenda item and expressed the following concerns. The fact that the existing road appeared to be offset from the recorded road easement as shown on the site plan, and questions about if this depiction was accurate. The plotted easement seemed unclear. The distance of the proposed residence to the existing roadway was unclear. And the proposed residence may be too close to the existing road and may hinder access to an adjacent lot to the north, which is served by the same existing road. Due to these concerns, the Planning Commission continued this item to a date certain on October 6, 2020, and requested that the applicant provide an additional survey information from a licensed land surveyor relating to the location of the existing roadway, its easement, and their relation to the proposed development. Next, please. In response to the September 1st Planning Commission meeting, the applicant provided a survey of the property conducted by William Raymond, who is a licensed land surveyor with Marshall Engineering Group, which is based in Glendora. So that survey is shown here. It's a topography survey. Next, please. The survey verified that the road easement is in fact offset from the existing road at this particular point on the property. In fact, the updated survey shows that the actual road and easement are located an additional 8 feet further to the northwest than was previously demonstrated on the project's architectural site plan presented to the Planning Commission at the last meeting. This means that the road and easement will be located even further away from the proposed residence than previously demonstrated. Next, please. And this is just the overall updated site plan. It's worth noting that the location of the main residence has not moved. Just the location of the road and road easement has been updated during the past recent survey, and that's shown better in the next slide. So next, please. So the enlarged site plan area on the left is the site plan which was presented at the last meeting. it shows that there is a 7-foot 3-inch distance between the roadway and the proposed residence. On the right side is the updated site plan, which is in a result of the updated survey. The enlarged site plan on the right displays the repositioned road and road easement. The proposed residence will be approximately 60 feet from the front property line, 34 feet 6 inches from the road easement, and 14 feet 9 inches from the existing roadway surface, as shown in the red numbers. As you see there, kind of on the bottom left, 14 feet 9 inches is shown there. This setback represents the closest point of the main residence to the existing road. For clarification, the municipal code defines the front setback for the RHR zone as being 40 feet or 10% of lot depth, whichever is greater, as measured from the street, and that the director may increase or decrease the minimum setbacks to preserve the natural topography or other natural features. As such, the setback of the proposed residence is proposed at 14 feet 9 inches. And again, that is measured from the closest point of the residence to the existing roadway surface. And again, the proposed residence meets all other development standards as demonstrated in last planning commission meeting. Next, please. So we're just going to go into some photos to kind of visualize what the front setback looks like on the site. So this is looking to the west on the existing road, and the photo was taken on near the building pad on the subject property. Again, this is looking to the west. Next, please. So this basically helps visualize what the 14-foot 9-inch setback is going to look like on the site. So shown in the left is a photo with the tape measurer set at 14 feet 9 inches from the roadway at that particular point. And on the right side again is the updated site plan, which also again demonstrates the 14-foot 9-inch setback at that point. Again, that is the closest point that the structure comes to the road, and you can see the outline of the proposed residence in red to kind of clarify where the actual building is positioned on the site. So hopefully that kind of provides more of a context and helps visualize what that is going to look like. Next, please. This is just a photo of the tape measure set at 14 feet 9 inches. Next, please. Another photo from another angle. This is kind of looking to the northwest from the building pad. Again, demonstrating the 14-foot 9-inch setback from the road. Just another angle of the other photo. Next, please. And this last photo is just another angle. This is looking to the south from the road, Rainbow Drive, looking down onto the 14-foot 9-inch setback area. Next, please. A mailed notice was sent to all property owners on August 21st of this year, following the project's continuation at the last Planning Commission meeting. A notice of continued public hearing was posted on September 2nd of this year. Next, please. And as such, the recommendation of staff is for the following: to adopt a notice of exemption for this project pursuant to section 15303 of CEQA guidelines, make findings with facts which are hereby incorporated in full within the draft resolution. And lastly, hereby grant development plan review PLN 19-0019 to allow the construction of a new 2-story single family residence and related grading over 150 cubic yards on certain property located at 936 Rainbow Drive, subject to the conditions of approval. That concludes my staff report. I'm available for any questions that the commissioners or members of the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver, for that presentation. Does any of the commissioners have any questions of Mr. Weaver before we go to public comment?
Yes, please.
Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Weaver, thank you very much. I appreciate the report again. Just to refresh from our last meeting, there is a legal easement in existence for the roadway as far as all the properties that are connected to it are. Is that correct?
Yes, it was demonstrated that there is a legal easement that exists that serves this property.
And the actual structure of the roadway then is an illegal encroachment onto this property due to its location.
I'm not too keen on the specifics, but I mean.
And let me retract illegal. I didn't mean to make it sound nefarious. I was just saying it's an encroachment. It's not where it was originally plotted, at least as far as the development was concerned. Fair?
Yeah, I think it would, I guess, be fair to make that statement since the actual road is offset at this point. The easement does exist, but it's just the fact that the road was misplaced on the property.
Okay, yeah. And the only reason I bring it forward is for clarification purpose. I sent an email to you quickly this afternoon asking you for the photos with the tape measure. I think that's very helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
The only thing I have is, so basically our concerns at the last meeting were somewhat verified and correct. Our concerns were correct. Now it worked out basically in the applicant's favor because now the house is set back from, but our concerns about the easement and the roadway being offset were correct. Correct?
Correct. Yeah. So this survey that was provided verified that fact that the easement is in fact offset from the road.
Yeah.
At this particular point on the property.
Yeah, I was just making note that I think we did a good job as a commission to recognize that and at least have clarification at this meeting, even though it cost them a month. That's all.
All right.
I had a question as well.
Yes.
At the last meeting, there was a gentleman here who I understand lived on the same road and was concerned about his access. Has that issue been resolved as a result of this new information?
I think if from my remembrance, his concern was that this proposed development would hinder access to his property to the north. It's staff's opinion that upon the resubmitted survey and the updated site plan that's not the fact, that the proposed residence is well set back from the road and that road access won't be hindered by this proposal.
Okay, yeah, that was my impression as well from that it wouldn't be actually interfering with his access.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other commissioners? Hearing none, this would be the time for the applicant to speak if they would like. They will have 10 minutes to speak on this item. Is the applicant available?
Yes, I am.
Great. If you could state your name and address for the record, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Hi, my name is Eddie Osage. I'm the architect for this project. And what was the other name and address? That was probably it. We've been working on this for quite a while. And when we were sent back to get more specific survey on it, it actually did show that the road was even, I mean, the easement was moved even further north. So, but everything else, we've abided by all the rules of the hillside ordinances, and we're completely within all the guidelines. I mean, I think we already kind of went through most of this last month, and it really came down to access to the north. And you can see clearly from the drawings and the diagrams that Joseph also put together that we are not affecting that in any way. And if anything, we've given plenty of room for that access to happen. That's pretty much it.
That's it?
Yeah.
Just for the record, have you and the applicant read the conditions and are okay with them? Agreed to
Yes.
them?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to open public comment. You'll have a brief moment to rebut if there's anything to rebut. At this time, I'm going to open public comment and now invite members of the public to address the commission. Each public speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Madam Deputy City Clerk, are there any requests for public comment at this time?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, we received no requests via Zoom or via email.
Okay. So we have no public comment. The applicant, there's nothing to rebut at this time, so we'll go past that. I'll now close public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion. Does anyone have any comments?
If I may.
Mr. Matthews, please.
So I will agree with our Commissioner Davis that fortunately we were successful in taking just enough time to hesitate and double check everything. I thank the applicant for being willing to work with us on that. It came out to the resolution that I think is correct. And so I think we've made all the changes that you can under the circumstances. And I'm pleased with where we've gotten to this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Matthews, does anybody else have any comments?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
I just want to say that I also agree with Commissioner Davis. I think that as a commission, we did a good job in clarifying information that we had a question about, and that was the right thing to do. And I think the two questions I had in my mind after the last meeting, it seems like have been resolved and seem like they've been taken care of. So I'm satisfied with that.
Okay, anybody else?
I just have one question regarding myself missing the last meeting, that this was continued to this meeting, based on just what I've seen this evening and in the report I've read prior to this particular meeting. It looks like a well-done project, and listening to the comments by the other commissioners, I think it met all the questions and answered based on what was the last meeting. But I'm not sure if I'm eligible to vote on this particular project, just on the function that I missed the last meeting and did not get the initial report.
Were you able to watch the last meeting after or review the materials from the last meeting, even though you were actually absent from that meeting?
I did review the materials and the prior agenda, but I did not view the entire meeting.
And you did have an opportunity to review these materials and the bases for the continuance that was established at the last meeting.
Yes, I did.
If you were completely in the dark about what the item before you is, I would normally say that you should abstain. It's actually not a hard legal requirement, but to the extent that you have educated yourself about what occurred at the prior meeting, as well as reviewing the materials that are in this package, I would recommend that you are perfectly eligible to vote.
Very
Okay.
well, thank you.
Have any other comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as submitted without change.
Hold on, Chair, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
At this point, I'm going to read the recommendation and then call for a motion. So the
Okay.
recommended action at this time is to accept evidence and testimony presented in the absence of substantial evidence to the contrary. Consider adoption of a categorical exemption pursuant to 15301 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, and waive full reading, read by title only, and adopt a resolution entitled, "A Resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Glendora, California, approving a development plan review to allow the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence and related grading over 150 cubic yards on certain property located at 936 Rainbow Drive, Plan 19-009019. Sorry. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Koss. We've got a motion by Commissioner Matthews, a second by Commissioner Koss. I will now take a roll call vote. Commissioner Koss,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood,
Aye.
Vice Chair Davis,
Aye.
and Chair Kent.
Aye,
And that motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Let's see, that takes
Luck on
us,
that hillside.
to consent calendar, is that right? Yes. Item on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion without individual discussion unless a commissioner has requested it be removed for separate discussion. Madam Deputy City Clerk, go
Yes,
ahead.
Chair, at this point, I don't believe there's been any requests to pull the consent calendar item, so I will request a motion to approve consent calendar item number 2. Is there a motion?
I'll
Is
make a
that-
motion to approve.
what-
That is Vice Chair Davis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Koss. I will now take a roll call vote. Commissioner Koss,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Is this, I'm sorry, I didn't jump in fast enough. Is this for our minutes?
yes, that's
Yes.
correct. The consent calendar item is for the minutes.
There is a correction on that. I was not a votee on item number 1.
Item number 1 to those minutes will be modified as per your request. So
Thank you.
if there are no objections, that will be modified. Is that okay? Lana, can we vote on it?
Sure. I mean, as long as the majority of planning commissioners are amenable to this being a friendly amendment to the motion to accept and approve the consent calendar with that one amendment as shown in the record, I would assume that's a friendly amendment.
Yeah, administrative
Yes.
change will be made to the minutes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so if there are no other objections, I'm going to start the roll call vote. Commissioner Koss,
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood,
I will abstain due to my absence at the last meeting.
abstain, thank you. Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
and Chair Kent.
Yes.
And that passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you.
Okay, that will, unfinished business, we have none. That'll take us to new business. We have one item, the consideration of a resolution to approve a landmark permit review and amendment to the Mills Act agreement to allow the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage on a historic landmark property at 111 North Pasadena Avenue, APN 8638010009. The applicant is Karen Fortis, and the project number is PLN 20-0016. Technician Weaver, if you could please report for us, please.
Thanks, Chair. Hello again, Commissioners. This item is a request for the approval of a landmark permit review and an amendment to a Mills Act agreement to allow the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage on a historic landmark at 111 North Pasadena Avenue. Just to clarify, the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to City Council regarding this project proposal. Next, please. The approval of the subject request will allow the demolition of an existing 490 square foot detached garage and the construction of a new 550 square foot detached garage with a 478 square foot carport. Next, please. Per the municipal code, a landmark permit is required as there is work being proposed on the same property as a historic landmark, which is the main residence. Additionally, an amendment to an existing Mills Act agreement is required in order to delete text that prohibits the property owner from demolishing the garage. To clarify, the Mills Act is a state law allowing cities to enter into contracts with owners of historic structures. This contract grants a reduction of property taxes in exchange for the preservation of the historic property. The owner of the subject property entered a Mills Act agreement with the city on January 14th, 1999. And to the date, the owner has done several improvements to the property, which is shown in attachment K to this report. The existing Mills Act agreement with proposed text deletion can be viewed as attachment I to this report. As the Mills Act agreements are approved by the City Council, this application request shall be reviewed and approved by the City Council as stated before. The only proposed change to the subject Mills Act agreement includes the deletion of the word garage, which is shown there in the little screenshot. And this would allow the property owner to demolish the garage as part of this project proposal. Next, please. So just some legislative history on this property. In 1999, the subject property was designated as a local historic landmark number 20 by the City Council. 1999, the subject property entered a Mills Act agreement with the city. Also, later in 1999, a 450 square foot addition to the rear of the main residence was approved by the Historic Preservation Committee. And most recently in 2005, a 460 square foot addition to the south of the main residence was approved by the City Council. Next, please. So here's a vicinity map of the subject property. The property is approximately 10,400 square feet in size and is located on the west side of North Pasadena Avenue, just north of the East Foothill intersection. The property has a general plan land use designation of low/medium density residential and a zoning designation of R1 single family residential. Surrounding properties consist of similar zoning and general plan land use designations, except with the exception of the R2 zoned properties to the west. As shown, the subject detached garage is located on the southwest corner of the lot, adjacent to an alley, which is on the rear or the west side of the property. Next, please. The main residence is a 1,858 square foot historic residence. Per the landmark designation file, the main residence was built in 1907 and is characterized by craftsman/Victorian architectural elements. It features a side gabled roof, exposed roof rafters, a front porch, roof dormers, and wood siding exterior. As stated before, the main residence has undergone 2 additions since its landmark designation, which was in 1998. No alterations to the main residence is proposed as part of this project. The existing detached garage, which is shown on the photo at the bottom, is a 490 square foot garage. It consists of a wood frame, gable siding, and a gable roof and a board and batten siding. The garage was most likely built around the same time as the main residence in 1907. Next, please. We're gonna go into some photos of the existing garage. So this is a northeast elevation of the garage. Kind of standing in the rear yard or kind of right behind the home. Next, please. This is a north elevation of the existing garage showing the sliding doors and the entrance. Next, please. Another northeast elevation of the existing garage, a little closer up. Next, please. This is a east elevation of the garage taken from across the pool. Next, please. This is taken from the alleyway on the west side of the property. This is a northwest elevation of the existing garage, as visible from the alley. Next, please. And this is a southwest elevation of the existing garage. Next, please. These two photos are just, again, photos of the main residence for context. This is the main residence, which is the designated landmark on this property. Next, please. So this is the existing site plan to demonstrate where the garage is located on the property. Again, it's kind of towards the rear corner adjacent to the alley. So that is the southwest side of the property. Next, please. So due to the historic landmark status of the main residence and the proposed demolition of the existing garage, a historic building assessment was conducted on the subject property in June of 2020. The assessment was conducted by Applied Earthworks, which is a company based in Pasadena. They specialize in history, archaeology, paleontology, and cultural resource management. The purpose of this assessment was to inspect and assess the subject garage, research its history, and evaluate its contribution to the historic significance of the property. Next. According to the assessment, the garage was likely built in 1907, as stated before, which was at the same time as the main residence, or the construction of the main residence. The garage underwent numerous alterations and repairs, which were conducted by a previous property owner between 1934 and 1995. These alterations included the widening of the original structure, the addition of a concrete floor, the addition of a workshop, and the addition of a covered porch. These were all done to the subject garage. These alterations were done without building permits, prior to the property's landmark designation, and in a manner which does not meet the Secretary of Interior's standards for preservation and rehabilitation, which is the current benchmark for alterations to historic structures. The assessment concluded that, quote, the subject structure has changed in appearance, lacks integrity, original design and feeling, and is no longer a contributing feature of the historic property. And the proposed demolition of the garage will not detract from the historic significance of the residence as a historic property, nor will its absence interfere with the surrounding neighborhood character, end quote. The subject building assessment can be viewed as attachment H to this report. Additionally, it's worth noting that the existing garage is not mentioned in the landmark designation file for this property. It's also only mentioned once in the Mills Act agreement, which is the text I showed in the previous slide, which is proposed to be deleted as part of this request. Next, please. So shown here is the proposal. So the proposal includes a new 550 square foot garage and a 478 square foot carport. The structure will be located within the same general area as the existing garage is. So you can see the location of the proposed garage and carport on the site, generally within the same area off of the alley. Next, please. Displayed here are the elevations of the proposed garage and carport, which are architecturally consistent with the craftsman elements of the existing residence. The structure features a gable roof form with a cross gable for the carport, cement fiber siding, and composition shingles for the roof. All materials and colors will match the existing historic residence. And you can kind of see the color selections on the left side, which are consistent with the main residence. The city's Historic Preservation Development Handbook recommends that the project follow the Secretary of Interior standards for the rehabilitation of historic structures. These guidelines offered by the U.S. Department of the Interior provide direction for rehabilitating historic structures and properties, and are used as a benchmark for any proposed work thereon. Staff has listed these standards in the draft resolution along with explanations of the project's compliance with each of them. Next, please. And shown here are the development standards for the project and their compliance. The proposal meets all relevant development standards regarding a new garage in a single family zone. It satisfies the parking requirements as well. And the compliance with standards are demonstrated in this table. Next, please. As such, staff recommends that the Planning Commission make a recommendation to the City Council to adopt a notice of exemption for this project pursuant to the following CEQA sections. Make findings with facts which are hereby incorporated in full within the draft resolution, and hereby grant landmark permit review and an amendment to a Mills Act agreement to allow the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage at 111 North Pasadena Avenue, subject to the conditions of approval. That ends my staff report. I can answer any questions the commission or members of the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Do I have any questions from commission?
Yes, please.
Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. A couple questions for the commission's edification. The original application and agreement from 1999 into our Mills Act, do we know if a similar type of review of that property was done prior to that Mills Act agreement as the one that was done in June of this year?
You're asking if this proposal has been proposed before?
Well, how was it determined that this property met the Mills Act qualifications by age, by design, by architecture, so on and so forth?
Okay, so the subject property gained landmark status in 1998, I believe I said in the report.
Right.
So there are findings for the establishment of a local landmark, which are included in that file. Our architectural findings and other significance are listed about the main residence, mainly pertaining to its unique style and how that craftsman architecture and Victorian elements are notable of architecture during that specific period. That's kind of the main backing to the historic designation of the main residence. The Mills Act came shortly at the Mills Act designation came shortly after and is actually under the same file number as the main residence, or I'm sorry, as the landmark designation. So that's really the main points for the landmark designation Mills Act agreement. So any historic landmark is eligible for a Mills Act agreement in the city.
So who sets the bar for qualification? How is that accomplished?
So again, there are certain findings for the designation of a landmark, historic landmark. And those findings are listed in the municipal code under the historic preservation.
So Joseph, if I could kind of jump in here, I think what he's looking for. So who has the expertise or the ability to evaluate whether or not a structure or a location, what have you, is worthy of granting a landmark status? And there's nobody who works for the city who has those qualifications. So what we ask for, if a homeowner wants to obtain landmark status, that they retain or we retain on their behalf, a historic resource professional to produce a report evaluating the property's either architectural significance or doing research to determine whether or not the property or buildings are located with significant historical events in the city, something that meets the city's guidelines for historic landmarks, as well as the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines for a historic landmark. And if a historic resource expert can make that finding and produce a report that says so, that generally speaking, the city will accept that, at least, and then bring that forward for consideration by the commission and later to the council to grant landmark status.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe just for a quick layman's explanation of what the Mills Act really fulfills between both the property and the owner. Can you lay out that a little bit?
Yeah, the purpose of the Mills Act was to, my understanding of it, is to give homeowners who have older properties like this one, and to provide them a financial incentive to preserve the home and actually make improvements to the home. And that financial incentive is in the form of a reduction in property taxes. So whereas, you know, if the property were assessed at full market rate, I'll just put a number on it. Let's say they would be paying $5,000 a year in property taxes. Instead of that, their property taxes are substantially reduced. They might be paying $2,000 a year. And in theory, when the city grants that, that in exchange, you know, the homeowner agrees to preserve the historic characteristics of the property, and in fact, sometimes even have a list of improvements that they're going to make that you know, that preserve the property, whether it be restoring windows or some other architectural features of the home that are part of its historical significance.
Okay, fair enough. So here's my concern is it's somewhat of a legal process, and I want to make sure that we don't create some sort of an issue for this property owner or for the Mills Act in this city by, even though, as you stated, Mr. Weaver, that the garage was only listed once in the agreement, it was listed. But prior to it being drawn in originally in 1999, we now know that back in 1934 to 95, modifications to that structure made it unqualified. And unfortunately, the applicant on this one has submitted documentation showing that she has spent money for improvements and credits on roof and paint. I don't want to create a problem for this homeowner because we're trying to unwind something at this point. I don't know if I am or not, but I'm a little bit concerned that we're at that point in this process and want to understand how we do that without any legal problems.
Well, someone could, you know, we're not unwinding if I understood the way you were using the term unwind, we're not unwinding the Mills Act agreement. The Mills Act agreement would remain intact, and that property tax benefit would remain intact. But we're eliminating the preservation of the garage as part of that Mills Act agreement. Now, if someone wanted to challenge that, as you know, saying that this decision is not consistent with, you know, a legal requirement of the Mills Act or the city's own historic preservation regulations, you know, someone can challenge that decision, you know, when the council makes it. And the way to challenge that decision would be, if that's what you're asking.
Well, yeah, in essence, you're on the right track, and I'm not trying to dispute it, but I know that there are penalties, significant financial penalties, for not meeting the agreement of the Mills Act. And can we as a city make changes to that Mills Act without putting the homeowner in jeopardy?
So the assessment of the historical significance is ultimately, in the findings set forth, therefore, in the Mills Act, is ultimately their findings that are made by the Planning Commission and then ultimately the City Council. And we have evidence here, and we believe it is substantial evidence that the primary building, that's not being touched, but we believe we have pulled together substantial evidence with regard to the detached garage, not having the historical significance, and in fact, being in such a dilapidated condition that it really needs to be replaced. And based upon those findings, that is where we derive the staff recommendation that ultimately the city makes these findings, and based upon the findings made by the city, we would revise the agreement to allow this improvement to not just remove the detached garage, but replace it with something that's even more suitable in terms of the historical significance of the primary building. I hope staff, if you want to weigh in on that, I have not mischaracterized anything.
I had a similar question as well. When Commissioner Matthews is finished, I had a similar concern.
And listen, I don't have a problem with where we're trying to go. I just don't want to make sure that if somebody does come out of the woodwork and determine that, there was some impropriety in the process, takes a shot at it and creates a bigger problem, because the purpose of the Mills Act is a financial credit as far as property taxes are concerned. And if I'm not mistaken, the applicant also has to document any of the improvements they've made financially into that obviously have some connection to this entire thing. So that there is that part of it. As you stated, our city attorney, we are all willing to allow for improvements to that garage that will more enhance or match what it probably should have looked like if it looked like the house, and I'm okay with that process too. So I just want to make sure that we're not opening up a potential issue for somebody down the road, just to make sure we cover our bases.
Yeah, that somebody doesn't swoop in and take away their tax credits.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If I remember right, a Mills Act can have a penalty for any infractions to the original agreement of 12.5% of the current value of the property when the Mills Act was pulled from the property. And I want to make sure that by us approving this at this point on a piece of a portion of that property that was part of the original Mills Act, that was not originally identified as having been modified and not even qualifying, puts this property owner in a financial jeopardy for some reason somebody pulls that card.
If I can just note, this is a really rare thing, obviously. I mean, in most of our everybody's careers here, and probably on tonight's meeting, have never heard this before. Something, and it's not, I would say it's not precedent setting. I don't think this is going to be like, oh my gosh, Marby's going to do this, because you have to have what they presented, which is you have to have an expert going out there to show, hey, there was an error here, that this really isn't that great of a structure. Obviously, the original historical landmarking didn't list it, and it was just mentioned in one word in the Mills Act agreement. I think that's a clear thing that needs to be really clearly noted. And the other thing I should note is, historic preservation has evolved since the 1990s and has definitely become more refined and more of a professional thing. And if you go back to the vast majority of all of our historical listings, the background materials to document that for their importance is very usually slim to none in some cases. And we've gotten far more extensive in terms of our experts to be able to go and do that kind of stuff. And so, I think that's sort of where we're at as well. And so I think that needs to be said.
So I also had actually a question or a comment. I guess I kind of share Commissioner Matthews' concern about the original agreement, because it sounds like these changes to the garage that were not done according to code and apparently were detrimental to its historical value weren't noted prior to that original Mills Act agreement. Otherwise, the garage wouldn't have been included in there because it's not historic anyway. So I think that that's kind of what's leading us to this problem now. I personally, in looking at this, and seeing some of these pictures, not only does it seem like the garage, the historian is telling us that it's not historically significant as the rest of the house is, the pictures that I saw, it looked like very ramshackle, like it was almost ready to fall down in some cases. And so to me, it's more than just a historical preservation issue, that this is actually a safety issue. This looks like just looking at the pictures that I saw, and I did drive past the property as I always do, prior to our meetings. And the garage doesn't look even almost structurally sound. So I think it's not just a historical preservation issue. I think it's also a safety issue.
I agree with you, and to tag on to finish up my thought behind and agree with you. Listen, I have some history with dealing with historic stuff, and there is I think there's a wide range of what this type of a process is meant to accomplish. Is the number one, architecturally preserve what is a valuable element of a community. That doesn't necessarily, in my eyes, mean that just because architecturally from the street, that it is from the nail to the batten to the paint and that type of stuff as far as completion is concerned. And I go back to our written resolution, which I think is a little bit curious, at least for me, under item number 3, where we say, lastly, that it will not create a false sense of history, which I'm not really sure that we're really concerned about that, particularly on this garage, in that it is going to be enhanced to improve the property and match the property, whereas before it wasn't. So there's a little bit of that. I'm not so sure how much concern, once we pull it off of our Mills Act agreement, do we really care what the building is at the end of the day, as far as if it is true to one direction or another, as long as the applicant is willing to meet something and we take it out of play. It seems the process for this seems a little bit more overblown at the end of the day. If we just take it off the Mills Act, and that's fine, let's do that, and then we can go ahead with however the garage process would be. But we're in the middle of it, let's get it done tonight.
And I will say that just since I'm working on 2 computers here, based upon a very brief amount of research, I found 2 resources with respect to your Mills Act penalties that I think you are raising some concerns about. Penalties may be imposed for the breach of contract, of the Mills Act contract, or the failure to maintain the historic property. There's nothing about that language that pertains to being able to amend based upon
change the contract, right?
It's fine, amending the agreement. And then the other resource that I found also said that the owner may also petition the city to cancel the Mills Act agreement. And in that cancellation situation is where it requires an assessment of a penalty of 12.5% of pre-Mills Act valuation. We're not canceling the contract. We are simply making a amendment to the contract based upon the substantial evidence that has been provided by our assessment.
So you're basically just taking the word "and the garage" out of the contract, basically. That's it. That's all we're doing, is taking out the words "and the garage."
That's literally all we would be doing.
Right.
No, I defer to the city attorney on that. No problem.
And I think this is it's a belt and suspenders effort on staff's part to make sure that what we're doing is documented to protect the homeowner and the city from challenge to this action. It's just good practice to make sure that you have an expert look at the property from that perspective, and you do make the appropriate findings, so everyone is secure that these types of penalties are not, or know that the owner is not going to be subject to that.
Totally appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right, any other comments, questions? Then I will turn it over to the city clerk.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, the recommended action is for the Planning Commission to recommend to the City Council to approve the landmark permit and amendment to a Mills Act agreement to allow the demolition of an existing garage and construction of a new garage at 111 North Pasadena Avenue, project number PLN 20-0016. Do we have a motion?
I will move.
Thank you, Commissioner Cost. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Who was that? Davis? Vice Chair Davis, thank you. I will now take a roll call vote. Commissioner Koss,
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews,
Aye.
Commissioner Norwood,
Yeah.
Vice Chair Davis,
Good to go, yes.
and Chair Kent.
Yes,
And that passes 5-0. Thank you.
thank you. That takes us on to any staff items. Anybody from staff have anything to say?
I have one if it's okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to introduce to the commission the city's recent hire for the position of associate planner. Natalie Espinosa started here in Glendora this week, and she comes to us from the city of Diamond Bar, where she worked in their planning department for the last 12 years. Glendora has been short on planning staff with the departure of a senior planner a year ago and an assistant planner 6 months ago. We're very excited to have Natalie join our planning division team and bring her many years of experience. This commission will likely see her in the near future presenting on various projects for public hearings. Wanted her to be present tonight so everybody can recognize her face and give Natalie a warm welcome for future meetings.
Hi,
Welcome,
Natalie.
Natalie.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.
Now that was the easiest part. It gets hard from here.
Watch out for those council people.
Exactly. Is there any other staff that has anything to say tonight? Any commissioners have anything to say?
I don't.
Seeing none, I will close this meeting and thank you everybody for your attendance and participation. Thank
All
you all.
right.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Have a good week. Good month. Till next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.